So let's bring in Susan. She's joining us right now from Washington, D.C. in our bureau there. Susan, really interesting piece there. And you based it on conversation with members of what you call the USA Today Trump voter panel. And you write that you're starting to see some erosion in that group of supporters. Tell me about that reporting.
You know, this is a group of 25 Trump voters that we put together just after the election last year so that we could go back to them and develop a conversation about how they were feeling this unprecedented new president was doing. And this is the fourth time we've gone back and done a set of interviews with them this year. It's the first time we've seen the beginning of some concerns, some caveats when it comes to their view of President Trump. It's not that they don't approve of him. It's not that they regret voting for him. But for the first time, we're hearing things like he really needs to learn how to work with Congress, or we're concerned about all the turmoil in the White House staff, the beginning of some anxiety among his core supporters.
So the president has obviously been under fire over the past few days. And, you know, he made this statement about the violence in Charlottesville that was applauded. But then this morning he retweets a far-right conspiracy theorist, and then he talks about maybe pardoning Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Is this a direct appeal to the base? I mean, a lot of people sort of criticized him for doing this sort of thing, but if the base is starting to erode even ever so slightly, can we expect to see more of this sort of stuff?
You know, I think the White House from the beginning has had a strategy of keeping their base together and not reaching out to voters who didn't vote for President Trump last November. And he's had some success with that. But I think on several fronts we see the White House trying to shore up that base. That includes these attacks on the news media, making the news media the opposition. It includes this new 30-second ad that was released 2 days ago that identifies the enemies who are obstructing President Trump and includes Democrats, but more reporters and anchors than Democrats, identifying them as enemies that are creating problems for President Trump. And one other evidence of that, I think, the president attacking Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader of the Senate, last week for the failure to pass Obamacare, clearly trying to target Senate Republicans, not the White House, for the failure of that campaign promise.
Yeah, it's almost like a scorched earth sort of thing. He's going after everyone just to make sure that he maintains that 34%.
Except that it's so fascinating, Susan. I mean, you've covered D.C. for a long time. You even have members of the alt-right trying to get out there to fire H.R. McMaster. You have Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner. It just seems like, I know the president is a former reality show star. It almost feels as if every week we're waiting for someone to receive the final rose or for someone to get booted from the House. Yeah. I mean, does it feel like that to you?
Well, it's really been remarkable. Sometimes not just a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis, or from morning to night, we're on high alert. We've had a chief of staff leave. We've had a national security advisor leave. We've had more than one communications director leave, and the press secretary leave. We have seen, you know, often early on in White Houses, there is some turmoil in staff as things shake out. We've never seen anything like this level of turmoil.
So can we talk about John Kelly? Because he was brought in to sort of get everyone into ship shape. But then we see these tweets that, you know, seem to be ill-advised. What does that say about the impact that he's having on the Oval Office and the White House?
You know, I think it says that General Kelly is the chief of staff. He's trying to get the staff under some control. He's trying to get a more orderly process for a policy. He is not the chief of the president. The president is still the president. And I think General Kelly comes into this with eyes wide open that the possibility of controlling the president going to be a really tough job. We've seen that certainly in the tweets. Even the tweet this morning, a retweet of a Trump train mowing down a CNN reporter. That's something the president retweeted, then deleted.
So now, Susan, let's talk about these CEOs. 3 prominent CEOs who have now resigned from the president's manufacturing council as a result of his response to the situation in Charlottesville. What do you make of that? Does it represent some kind of a tipping point that the president, who has put himself out there as this business leader, this great business leader, is losing other business leaders who don't want to be a part of this administration?
You know, you saw after the first resignation from the CEO of Merck, the president fighting back within an hour with a very negative tweet about Merck, but then 2 other CEOs following. The risk matters a lot to this White House because the president's fundamental appeal is that he's a businessman who can get things done, that you can trust him on handling the economy because he's going to get private business sector going in a stronger way. So the idea that he is getting this pushback from the leaders of the business world, I think, of great concern to the White House.
We mentioned earlier that Major Garrett is reporting that the chief strategist, Steve Bannon, may be on the outs, maybe on thin ice. What are your sources telling you about his job security?
Well, he's clearly got some problems, but my only cautionary note is that we've heard this before,
right,
that Steve Bannon was in trouble. So until he's actually ousted, I think we should be cautious. And the fact that people like Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic leader of the House, is calling for his ouster, that may provide him with some job security he didn't have before.
All right, Susan Page, appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Thank you.